Welcome to the one and only personal finance class. I'm your instructor, Jacob Miller, and today we're just going through a quick introduction. My understanding of personal finance as a kid was largely influenced by DuckTales, and essentially personal finance involves skiing down large mountains of money. But as I've grown up, I've realized that personal finance is basically this tool that helps you to manage the rest of your life and to achieve the rest of the goals in your life, in career, your family, how to effectively use your time. That personal finance plays a key role in all of these things. And so when we effectively execute on personal finance, all of these other things tend to get easier. But personal finance can be very intimidating, especially at first. There's so much material out there. There are personal finance textbooks that are 500, 800 pages long. There's an endless supply of books that are out there. But what I've found is that project-based learning is the most effective way to approach personal finance. We do a project, we gain some key insights and knowledge, and then from there we apply them into our own lives, evaluate how it goes, we learn more, and we just repeat this process in our own lives of continual improvement. Another way of thinking about projects is adulting. So this is from the Urban Dictionary, but adulting is what adults tend to do quite often. So if we think of projects as just this sandbox of adulting, and then we go adult in the real life and go learn more, personal finance tends to make a lot more sense. So this is what you're getting yourself into. Here's a quick outline of the course. First, you need to establish goals in your life. Not personal finance goals, life goals, other types of things that you want. And then you gain some knowledge about financial statements and how those operate and the intricacies of gathering the information within the personal finance realm. And from there we assess money coming in the door in the form of revenue, money going out the door in forms of expenses, and then managing our debt and then our assets. So relatively straightforward, but it's hitting each one of the core points within a very logical flow. Now some people have asked me, why doesn't this course cover more about investments? I've taken other personal finance classes, someone has said to me, and we spent half the time or 3/4 of the time on investments. Why don't we spend that much time on investments? Well, first of all, if you don't execute on the other steps, there's no investment to make because you have nothing to invest, which is quite important. But what I've also learned is that in modern era, with just a little bit of effort and some good resources, you can actually automate and effectively invest quite well. And managing assets well actually takes far less effort than it did, say, 30, 40 years ago. Also, if you want to invest in, say, startups or real estate or other assets, that's fantastic, but that's not going to be the focus of this class. And so most of our time in each one of these sections is kind of spent on three things, which is we need to create these goals that align with our desires, what we're trying to achieve. We then align our behavior to achieve these goals. And then finally, there are lots of big doozies or big mistakes that we can make along the way. Let's avoid those, and it'll be a lot easier to actually achieve those goals. There are a number of pretty good textbooks that are out there about personal finance. I'm not a huge fan of them. I mean, they are pretty good, but I'm not a huge fan of the current popular crop that's out there, mostly because of how long they are and how they don't focus on the essentials, and also because of how outdated they are in some areas. As far as on length, very often there will be something, say in one textbook, there's an 11-page description of 401k matching, and you get to the end of all of that, and it's not clear how your behavior should change. I mean, I'd put an entire page of just with the words "do it" next to 401k matching just to make sure to get that message across. A lot of the textbooks as well are outdated in a sense because within modern personal finance, a lot of the steps have been automated and streamlined. And so those skills aren't nearly as necessary as they were previously. I mean, really what drives the primary differences and delivers the results within personal finance is self-control and decision skills. And if you can construct valuable frameworks in order to make life decisions within personal finance, you'll be succeeding far more frequently than you would, say, if you were just studying page after page after page of how, say, tax code works or how to effectively invest or diversify. That being said, we will still be using a textbook and some other resources. So the textbook that we'll be using for this course is an open source textbook by Saylor Academy. It's very good, highly recommend it. I'll be providing links to individual sections and chapters that are relevant for the topics that we will be covering. I'll also be providing links to curated articles, also links to project information, and all of that is going to take place down in the description section below each video. So when you fire up each video, pause it, scroll down, go through that material first, and then go through the video after so that the video puts everything in the right context. So you might be wondering, who is this clown monologuing at you? Well, and why would he be qualified to actually discuss these items within personal finance? First of all, there's my educational background. It's within economics, decision sciences, and data science as well. But after finishing my education, I've had the opportunity to work outside the United States a lot. And during this time, I've been very interested in personal finance and exploring around the world how personal finance is approached differently in different places, not just within, say, the United States, but in countries all around the world. And what's fascinated me the most is the variety of effective approaches in personal finance. That there isn't this one size fits all, but rather that you have certain goals and you're using these different approaches within personal finance to help you achieve those goals. And that can be done in a number of different ways. And it's this fascinating area that I've been studying over the last 15 years. Now let me put my cards on the table. I have certain goals and things that I want out of this course. First of all, one of the main reasons I'm doing what I'm doing is because I like seeing the improvement that I see in your lives. Through these quantitative and decision skills, you see the changes that people make, the shift in their trajectory, in their work, in their communities, and throughout their lives. Second is that I want to enjoy my time with you. I find this enjoyable in creating course content. I could be doing other things, definitely, that are more lucrative. But I've had a great time doing this, and I'm going to keep doing it, and I love it. So having a good time, as long as I'm having a good time, I'm going to keep doing it. I also want to improve my instruction. I have no problem, say, taking down a video and replacing it, because what I really value is the playlist of these courses rather than just the individual videos. So if there's an individual video where I could improve, would really appreciate any helpful feedback. I'm constantly looking toward that. And also, I would like to get an A. And to me, an A is receiving positive feedback from you of different changes that you've made in your life, so I know that I am actually helping you make these changes. So those are my goals. And one last bit about me. Here are some random work pictures, work-ish pictures that I've taken around the world, and I just wanted to re-emphasize that in these different places where I've worked, say in Asia, South America, Caribbean, I've seen these different approaches taken to personal finance that have worked very effectively in different places around the world. And even though the approaches might slightly differ, the core concepts of linking your goals within personal finance is always the most important element in that chain in order to make that succeed. But the reason why I got into personal finance in the first place, around 15 years ago, was because I became what you could call a ninja LOL, known for no income, no job, no assets, and lots of liabilities. That's not a great position to be in. I finished graduate school with 6 figures of student loans, and again, no assets, lots of debt, things not looking so well. I was interviewing for a job in the middle of the Great Recession. Not the greatest time in the world to be interviewing for a job. I interviewed 41 times before my first job offer. Now, of course, that's partly because I'm terrible, awful at doing interviews. But, you know, with practice, improving eventually. Finally found a job, but it was paying a lot less than a lot of my colleagues were actually making because of the time period. But within, a few years later, I had the freedom to pursue those things that were most important to me. And a critical part of that was following certain principles within personal finance and aligning them with my goals. So remember, personal finance isn't just a drudgery. This is the vehicle. This is what takes you to where you want to go. Now, like I said, there are 6 sections in this class. The 6th section, each section has a project associated with it. And the final project, you actually need to kick off right away. And that is Project 6. So your final Project 6 is to keep a budget for 2 months. But it's much more than just keeping a budget. Throughout this, you're going to discover a lot about yourself and about where you struggle and where you actually succeed. And so first you're going to create a budget, but it's not going to be an entire budget. It's not going to monitor your income either. What I want you to do is just to select 3 categories of expenses to monitor. Say gas, food, general shopping, or food, restaurants, something else. So pick those 3 categories and make sure that they're categories that kind of vary from month to month that you'll need to track. And what I want you to do is to write out why you selected these 3 categories and what do you anticipate to be the greatest difficulty in both tracking your expenses, but also following the goals and kind of budget that you've set out. The second item is that after your first month, you perform what's called a variance analysis. And I'll provide a link to some information of how to do a variance analysis for each of these 3 categories. So how much you spend is dependent on kind of 2 things: how much you bought and what was the price of the things that you purchased. So one good example is with gasoline. So did you consume more gas than you anticipated? Let's say if you went over on your budget, or maybe the price went up, or maybe the price went up by a lot and you actually consumed less, but you still came up on net over budget. Being able to monitor both price and quantity makes things a lot more, much more granular, so that you can pinpoint what are the behaviors that you need to adjust in order to align this personal finance with your goals. So step 3, this is based off of your results. Of step 2, what I want you to do is to adjust your budget for month 2 for these 3 categories. And at the end of month 2, perform another variance analysis. After doing 2 variance analyses at the end of these months for each of these categories, it'll start to give you a flavor, and also having kept a budget for 2 months, you'll have an idea of where the low-hanging fruit are, of the adjustments that you can make, where you can channel your financial resources to better align with what you're trying to accomplish and what you're trying to do. All in all, I highly recommend using some sort of high-quality software to do this. Most of them are free or quite inexpensive. Mint, YNAB are 2 popular ones, but there are many others that are out there. Or you can use Microsoft Excel, a Google spreadsheet, a piece of paper. People have been doing this for a long time. Just these other software that's out there, these other resources that are out there can be hugely helpful.